All right. Welcome. Good afternoon. This is Global Kinship, exploring the evolving noosphere. We're a monthly webinar sponsored by Creation Spirituality Communities, and your hosts are Bob Eisenberger and myself, Penny Andrews. Today, we're so pleased to welcome the acclaimed author, organizational consultant, and leadership mentor, Margaret Wheatley. Saying the word noosphere can feel awkward, but if you think of the word know, K-N-O-W, as in knowing, as an understanding that goes beyond fact to include meaning, wisdom, values, and purpose, the word noosphere may come alive for you in ways connected to how you are living right now as an image of a sphere of knowing. The noosphere was first noticed and named by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin in France and Vladimir Vernadsky in Russia 100 years ago. As a paleontologist, Teilhard observed how humanity progressed from hunter-gatherers and primitive tribes to the great philosophers, musicians, poets, and the vibrant culture of his day. How did this happen? What was next? 100 years later, we can answer that. A rise in population, interplay of cultures, scientific discoveries, exploration of space, electronic media and technology. As is often said by maturing parents, our children are so much taller and smarter than we are. Each generation builds upon the one before. Their experiences within Earth's biosphere, as on Instagram, has led them to build a kind of global kinship, which we could not have imagined when we were their age. Brian Swim calls this development complexification. And in this moment, we are living in intense complexification. It happens simultaneously, like a rising from our collective subconscious or an inspiration from the cosmic mind within which we live. To participate in this meeting of the minds, we need to pay attention to what is happening both inside and outside of us. That's why we're here. We are exploring the emerging noosphere. We look forward to sharing this quest with you as part of First Thursday's series, which are held on the first Thursday of each month on a rotating basis with other programs. Global Kinship will be on 4 times a year, and our next one will be in October. And before we get started, and let me borrow this phrase from Meg, who is a teacher of mine right now, as she says, take a seat. I really love that. And that's her way to calling us to center. And I'm going to begin with a poem by Rosemary Watola Tromer. So let your breath enter your body deeply, calmly. If you are one who has practiced meeting the pain of the world, we need you. Right now, we need you to teach us it is possible to swallow what is weighty and still be able to rise. We need you to remind us we can be furious and scared and near feral over injustice and still thrill at the taste of strawberry, ripe and sweet, can still meet a stranger and shake their hand, believing in their humanness. We need you to show us how we too can fall into the darkest unplumbed pit and learn there a courage and beauty we could never learn from the light. If you have drowned in sorrow and still have somehow found a way to breathe, please lead us. You are the one with the crumbs we need, the ones we will use to find our way back to the home of our hearts. And with that, I turn it over to Bob.
Thank you, Penny. Those are certainly grounding words. I love that. And it's my joy and pleasure to introduce our guest for the day, someone who has indeed found a way to continue to breathe through these times and to continue to find ways to help teach others how to lead through these times. Margaret Wheatley began caring about the world's peoples in 1966 as a Peace Corps volunteer in post-war Korea. As a consultant, senior level advisor, teacher, speaker, and formal leader, she has worked on all of the continents except Antarctica, with all levels, ages, and types of organizations, leaders, and activists. Her work now focuses on developing and supporting leaders globally as warriors for the human spirit. She has authored 13 books, dozens of articles, the latter of which are available free on her website, margaretwheatley.com. To give you a taste of her work and her impact, I offer this partial review from the Philosophy of Coaching and International Journal. I want to state up front my deep affection and appreciation for Margaret Wheatley. Wheatley's books aren't just facts and figures. They aren't simply a vision for a different world. They aren't manuals to guide action. They are pieces of art, meditations, journeys into deep places, cries for change, calls to actions, yearnings for a better world. Her books are expansive, creative, generative, and deeply personal. And I found it telling when we inquired of Margaret, when we invited her to be with us today, that she suggested and selected the thought of how are we doing with who we've chosen to be. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Margaret and say welcome to our circle. And I will simply turn the chair over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Bob. I'm delighted to be with you all because it is such a desperately difficult time. But I am very moved by thinking about Teilhard de Chardin's experience and also the beautiful poem that we just read, Turning to the Pain of the World. So we all know, right? We stand on the shoulders of giants. My own Tibetan Buddhist teacher has said quite clearly, it's just our turn to serve the world. It's just our turn. And so the phrase leaning into the pain of the world comes from Joanna Macy, who is right now in hospice and soon to depart. I think she's 96. And she is surrounded by family and friends. And at least a few days ago was having a joyful time discovering that she could sing. And everyone, one of Joanna's great gifts to us was with a colleague to translate the works of Rainer Maria Rilke. And so people are circulating this poem that she translated. Quiet friend who has come so far, feel how your breathing makes more space around you. Let this darkness be a bell tower and you the bell. Let this darkness be the bell tower and us the bell. And then I think it's important to note that Teilhard de Chardin achieved his mystical and evolutionary sensibilities because he was exiled to China by the Vatican. They didn't like him at all. I mean, think how many great Catholic priests, I'm thinking of Matthew Fox especially, have been defrocked and exiled because of their views, and yet it is their views that are so necessary at this time. So I want to honor Teilhard de Chardin and Joanna Macy as we inquire together, basically, how are you doing? And how is the role that you have chosen for yourself at this time? How's that going? What's keeping you sustained? What's keeping you out of the dark pit of despair, disillusion, cynicism, rage, all these things that feel quite normal to me on a daily basis as I contemplate and tune into the increased suffering. Now, Trump's bill did just pass. This is just an hour or two ago. This is our new reality of the increased suffering of millions and millions of Americans. We tried, we did our best, and here we are. This is the reality. This is leaning into the pain of the world. So, assuming you have been tuning in, and we all go through periods where we can no longer tolerate the news, so we take a break. But I feel it is our obligation and our spiritual need to know what's going on, because we all want to help, right? We all want to serve in some way. Now, my work is founded on Joanna Macy's bringing forth the prophecy of the Shambhala warrior. That comes from a very ancient time in Tibet. Some say it was just an imaginary kingdom, but my Tibetan Buddhist teacher, who of course I believe absolutely, has said, no, I have met people from there. It was this kingdom of conscious beings, people who knew that what was really important in life was to not get caught in selfishness, but instead to learn how to be compassionate, to not get caught in fear, but instead learn how to stay present and of service to other people. So I know a lot of this by heart now, so I'm just going to bring in what I recall right now. Prophecy said there comes a time on earth, which all the Tibetan teachers now say it's right now. There comes a time on earth when great powers have arisen that threaten themselves with weapons of great destruction. Even though they try to destroy each other, they are actually quite similar. But they use these weapons of destruction to destroy one another. And after a time, the thread of life hangs by the frailest of threads. The veil of life hangs by the frailest of threads. Is that what you're tuning into right now? Because it's very real. I also want, and at that time, the Shambhala warriors come forth. Now, if you're offended by the word warrior, get over it, because there's a long tradition of spiritual warriorship. People who sacrifice themselves for others. And the Shambhala warriors have two weapons, quote, weapons. Those are compassion and insight. Insight into the real understanding of what's happening, of true causes and conditions, of how we got here in great complexity, understanding it. That's our level of wanting to discern, to know, to understand what's going on. And that is a highly complex definition at this time. But the other weapon is compassion. Compassion, I find, is easy, but it also gets us into a lot of trouble. There is good compassion where, based on seeing clearly what's needed here, what is needed here, not what I want to have happen, but what I might contribute to so that it will happen. That's compassion with discernment. And then there's another one, I'm sure we're all familiar with it, and it's called idiot compassion. Idiot compassion is the cause of burnout. It's the cause of despair and cynicism when we see all of our efforts just taken away, defunded, denied for their usefulness, or we're blamed for failing in some way. But idiot compassion is our true heart's need to help, right? You see something's wrong and you just want to contribute a solution. In this day and age, now known as the poly crisis, and I think that's a minimal description of what's happening. But as people talk about the poly crisis with climate, with politics, with leadership, with the increased suffering now, there are 25 million homeless people on the planet now. People who have had to flee their homes, 25 million. We can't solve all these things that are so us to. So idiot compassion is trying to solve more than we physically can. You know, we're all old now, which means we're very wise. We see patterns clearly. This is not just a little bit of hopeful brain neurology, physiology here. Older folks see patterns. We know what to pay attention to, and we know which things are just little bubbles or little eruptions, which when you're younger, everything is important, right? Is an eruption. But from our elder vision, we can see what's going on more clearly. And yet we also have to accept the reality that these problems cannot be solved at this point. They have their own momentum, their own dynamics. So for example, if we stopped emitting carbon into the atmosphere today, the atmosphere would still be reacting for 20 to 30 years. Because we set these things in motion, and now Mother Earth has her own processes for reacting or responding. So there are dynamics now that cannot be stopped. The wisdom of eldership is to understand that. And then here's where I get very positive. To look locally at what we can contribute to. President Theodore Roosevelt said, do what you can where you are with what you have, to which I've added, with the people in front of you. Now, as you know, I mean, government funding has just disappeared everywhere in the world now. It's quite a horror show. The end of US aid, the end of scientific research, the end of public education, the end of sanity, life-giving practices are what I describe as sanity. And insanity is destroying life and life's possibilities. So we are in this truly destructive, insane period. And so going local is where we can still make a substantive impact. I wonder how many of you already are engaged locally in some way, whether it's through a church, through an association, through a local nonprofit. They're suffering terribly now. A local food bank, whatever. If you could just raise your hand, how many of you are engaged locally? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to have a conversation, which in a moment, which I'd really love you to share some of your experiences, because that's where we need to give our compassion and our insight. How can I serve my local community as the world collapses, as the world goes down, with these dynamics, both climate and social and political dynamics will not be reversed anytime soon. We just have to play this one out, and we'll all be gone by then, which for some people is a relief. I don't know how you're feeling about that, but I have a commitment to stay as long as I can. So I want to actually hear from you about, which is your answer to the question that I posed at the beginning. How are you doing with who you've chosen to be? That's a book title. Who do we choose to be? Restoring Sanity is the title of my most recent book. But how are you doing in your local work now? And what's it giving to you in terms of perseverance, in terms of stamina, or just an open heart? So please don't hesitate. And then who's ever spotlighting, if you can spotlight me and the person who's speaking.
Absolutely. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't. If you'd like to speak, please access your Zoom toolbar and click on Raise Hand. That will put you in line, and we can get to everybody in sequence. And let's see. Let's get you back spotlighted, Margaret. And I saw a comment go in the comment.
I'm just reading it from Suzanne about preparing for the future. Yeah, there's a lot of that going on. I'm talking about spiritual preparation.
Exactly.
Okay, don't be shy, folks. Just come on, share your learning. Okay, Suzanne, there you are.
There we go.
Well, that you've invited spiritual evolution. You know, something has struck me that I actually wrote about last week or week before that I've been living with that I think, oh my God, how can I share this with everybody? I heard somebody on a panel. He was an educator in the business kind of category, and he was saying he just so struck me with this simplistic thing, but I'd never taken it so seriously. He said, everything you do with love. That was the essence of it. Never speak from anger, from fear. He said, yeah, hardest business decision. You have to let people go. You do it from love. Well, I've been monitoring myself since. Of course, I know it's all about love. We all know that.
Right.
Distract. And I've been just watching. How do I respond to things when I'm angry? I mean, I get angry. I'm not a calm.
I think anger is necessary. It shows we're in touch with what's going on.
I don't mean to suppress anger. I mean to deal
Express it. Yeah.
the whole other layer or
Yeah.
place. It doesn't make you limpy, you know, it's not mush love, but it's that you are the love. And when you say have compassion, it's even easier to monitor yourself to come from love. Anyway, I think it's a very valuable
Oh,
kind of.
thank you. And it reminds me, just stay on a bit. It reminds me, many years ago, I was driving somewhere in the south of the US, and there was a huge billboard of Christ. And he said, the billboard said, "When I said love one another, I meant it." And I've always loved that. But yes, and a lot of teachers now are saying, I think you might look up Gary Zukav's work because he's very clear about choosing to come from love or to come from fear. And this is something I love that you're taking it to your practice, watching yourself with that. Like, how could I respond with love right now? That's all we have to do. And we're still going to be a minority, but we'll be very happy and we'll do good work.
Well, it's not about loving people either.
No.
So it's, oh, you have to love everybody. Well, that's Jesus.
Oh, no. Yeah. We'll leave that to Buddha and Jesus.
Not
Yes.
human love. You don't have to depart from that.
The other thing about this, Suzanne, and everyone here, is when you're in fear, you have no human capacity for love or thinking about anything except self-protection. That's the brain neurophysiology. When we're in fear, we're back in the primal animal reptilian brain. So when we just take a moment to think about how we're going to react to something or somebody, we're moving into full human consciousness. And that's, if we do that, then life is better and more manageable. So I'm so glad you began our conversation, Suzanne. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. We had another hand up. Ellen seems to have taken it down.
Well,
Oh, here she is again. Thank you, Ellen.
I put it back up.
Oh,
I'm sort of
oh.
reluctant to speak out first because
Hang on.
this is
No, that's good.
it's only my second time kind of coming to these. But I follow Matthew Fox every day.
Okay, good. Well, that's great.
Yes, every day. I wouldn't know what I'd do without it. Um, uh, Locally, yes, I am doing more in my neighborhood. I'm trying to like meet more people and kind of expand my circle. And three of my neighbors joined me in the last No Kings protest, and we had one locally, and it was extremely well attended. I didn't have to go into
Those were wonderful.
yes, and I didn't have to drive into Raleigh. I'm in North Carolina, so I just did in my town, and yeah, make a lot of contacts. And some of us are going to get together and maybe meet in the downtown and sing, just sing freedom songs and
Wonderful,
things like that.
wonderful.
So yeah, yeah, and I really loved the last thing, even though I didn't follow everything he was saying, but he was talking about the universe and the vibrational level, and we're here to raise our vibration, but also the collective vibration, and that stuck with me. And also, he said, it was a physicist, and he said, at the root of the universe is oneness.
Absolutely.
One.
Absolutely.
And that just blew me away.
You know, this is, as Einstein called it, an illusion of separateness. But how you really experience feeling connected, for me, and I've learned this from Richard Rohr, is that when we are in communion with another person, where we're not self-protecting, where we're singing together, where there's no thought of me, it's just what we're creating together, that's a moment of joy. And in that sense, for me, joy is a consequence of being together. And it's the experience once we get past our own ego demands or tiny little feeling of separation and join. So go ahead and start singing in town.
Oh, we do. I also
That's
belong
great.
to, yeah,
That's great. Yeah. Thank
and
you.
dancing too.
Okay. Well, you've
Oh,
got it then. You've got it.
absolutely.
Joy is resistance.
That's the truth. Thanks so much, Ellen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mark Steiner, yes.
Hello. Greetings, Margaret.
Hello, Mark.
I probably quote you as much as anyone in the known universe. Relationships is all there is.
Yes.
It's a phrase that I share often. I'm thinking about the importance of leaning into our humanity and being the deeply sensitive creatures that I think we're designed to be, and how important that is at this time
Yes.
as an individual and as a part of community. And the challenge of that in a moment where we're so overwhelmed that numbness is a possible response. And so for me, I'm leaning into, as I've been for a while, Mary Oliver's instructions for living a life: pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. And
Yes.
it's getting me pretty far. But it is definitely a struggle to stay that sensitive being, right? And to not shut down in the presence of such overwhelming, heartbreaking reality.
Yes. Well, stay on. I want to say that I mean, I quote Mary Oliver with that beautiful awakening to what's around us, and it's always astonishing. And I've recently been quoting from Navajo teachers, the Dene of the beauty way, that may you walk in beauty, beauty around you, beauty above you, beauty below you. But what they mean by beauty is tuning into life's harmony and order and balance. It's not aesthetic. So you just go for a walk in a park and you will see harmony,
Mm,
order, and balance. Or you go for a walk by a stream or in a woods. These are important activities for us to be astonished by how orderly, harmonious, and in balance the natural world is, until we come in and screw it up, but it is the antidote to despair at this point, being outside with life, reveling in its beauty, order, and harmony.
mm,
Yeah, thank you.
my pleasure.
Okay, someone else, don't be shy.
Maybe I would just take the opportunity well, others are waiting with thoughts to answer that particular question. I ran across a quote of yours in my recent readings in talking about systems, which fascinates me because of just because of um, how they organize the world and yet are so large and feel beyond our control sometimes. And of course, all of your work and sharing wisdom about emergent systems is so exciting. But in one of your talks, you said that there is no reversibility
Mhm.
in emergent systems.
Right.
And some days it feels to me like so much of the work, the good work, well-intentioned work that we see and experience is about trying to fix what is.
Oh, definitely. That is the model right now. Definitely. You're right.
And so what do you say to those who feel like, I know no other way? I don't know how to create something new. I don't feel capable of.
Yeah, well, that's silly because we're all highly creative people. If you find something you care about, and then you find a few other people who also care about it, you'll be creative. you'll be creative. You know, necessity is the mother of invention is still a very true statement. So when we see something in our town that's not working well, and you talk to a few other people, that's the beginning of a creative new response to an old problem.
Right, right.
We just need to start talking to one another and find a few others who really care as much as I do about a particular issue. That's how great nonprofits and Peace Prize winners began. I used to look at that history, and it was always a few friends and I started talking.
Right.
So let's use our conversations to explore who else cares about what I care about.
Right. And that's a good reminder to what you said at the very beginning about focusing locally. When I feel the pull of the despair, it's thinking bigger, thinking more globally. But as you've said, and I think we all know, we can only work locally, and yeah, and do
That's
that.
right.
Yeah. I see a couple of other hands have come up. Patty,
Okay.
Graf. Oh, hang on.
You- Yeah,
I'm just trying to find the button to remove me.
that's okay. That's okay, Bob.
Um,
I'm inspired by what you're saying, Margaret, about finding a few more people. I just finished a week-long camp in Maryland, in suburban Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C., for 40 kids from the inner city in Washington, D.C. And the camp's been going on for about 35 years. And we copied it from another parish. And that parish no longer has it. That dissolved. And this year, our parish had construction. And they said, too bad you can't have camp. And I said, oh, no. We're going to have camp.
Good for you, Patty.
We're going to do something.
Yeah.
And the pastor wanted us to get another Catholic parish to sponsor us. And nobody would step up. And so the Lutherans down the road from our church, the Lutherans took us in. And we had camp. We just finished last week. And I'm almost recovered, but not quite. But the thing is, we live in a very green area where I am. It's 2-acre zoning, one house on 2 acres, and it's like a park. And the kids, just when they see that, they react to it. They're coming from very, very difficult living situations. And it's something that every child in Washington, D.C. should have access to. And every single church or group of people in Maryland should be doing this for at least 1 week. I understand why you can't do it for a month, because at the end of a week, we're done. Okay. But, and the moms always ask, could you just do it for 2 weeks? No. And I always say, if you saw what we look like on Friday afternoon, you'd know we couldn't do it. But, it's not an enormous amount of money. And it really is something the kids respond to, they learn. But it's a matter of, I guess, me getting off my tush and saying, oh, yeah, our camp was fine, but that's the only one for miles. So there need to be other camps.
Yes. Well, you got the fire in you now. And I say, just go for it, Patty. One of the most touching moments I worked with the National Park Service as an advisor for many years. And one of the most touching moments occurred in DC when a group of students who'd been part of a national park camp came up to the director. One of them said, "Thank you for showing me the stars." And we were all deeply moved by that. Still am,
Yeah.
So I say this is a great thing, and churches should be doing it. Absolutely. So I dub you a spiritual warrior for getting camps going for kids.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patty. Caroline Million.
Those of us who know Patty know she's been a spiritual warrior for as long as she's been on planet Earth.
Oh, good.
And I do want to say, I disagree with you, Bob. You said you can only work locally, and I think that's pretty dismissive of what you're doing right here. You're not working locally with what you're doing right here. This isn't
Oh,
local
that's
action,
a good
but it's impactful action. And Patty might be working locally with the DC crowd, but she's also on the First Sunday's worship team, which is also acting. It may not be acting locally. So I do want to point out that we have other areas, especially virtually with Zoom meetings such as this one. And, you know, kudos to Bob and Penny and all the others who put this together. So that's not why I raised my hand. I raised my hand because in 2004, I took a class from Joanna Macy and wrote my essay on Shambhala Warrior. And this morning I happened to be going through, so I recognized, you know, pretty much everything you said. And this morning I happened to be going through some old papers and came across again the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. And I always had a curiosity in my mind about the connection between the prophecy of the Shambhala Warrior and the prophecy of the eagle and the condor. I wonder if you could speak to that.
Well, I've never been asked that. So the eagle and the condor you're going to help me with this since you brought it up, but it's the unification of North and South. And whether that applied beyond North and South America, I don't think it did. The condor is the symbol of power for South America. Is that right? And there is a time when these two great forces for good could be meeting, and doesn't seem to be happening very well, though. The Shambhala prophecy, which does come from a different basis, which was, it was a community of awakened people. And they knew how to live together consciously, without friction, without any, you know, anger. And this is written in many texts of that quality that they would have had if they were awakened. So I think it's more for me, and I've certainly used it a lot. I'm part of that Buddhist community. It goes back to love, and it goes back how to be the best person I possibly can and not get caught in anger or cynicism, but to really work with my mind so that I don't respond from anger or sadness. Instead, I let those be, and I respond from caring and love. So I think they're very distinctly different.
Well, and I hear perhaps healthy dose of cynicism in regards to this maybe being the time of that happening, that in point of fact, maybe we're not measuring up.
Well, the time of which happening, the eagle and
the unification, the working together, the cooperation on a more global scale.
Yeah, well, I can also tell you from my own direct experience that the shamans of Peru, who held a prophecy that has played out completely, that they lived in the high Andes Mountains, and in 1500 they knew the conquistadores were on their way and that they would lose their culture, and they hid themselves high up in the mountains because these Spaniards would not be able to navigate high altitude. And then they came back down to teach and to travel the world, because I have several friends who were part of this with Peruvian shamans, to teach us how to live together peacefully, lovingly. So they really did. That was a true blending of the condor and the eagle. And they also spoke a lot in Europe, but this was in the 90s, you know. And then I'll just give you a little bit of history here. These shamans who had come down from the mountains had no livelihood, so they were working in factories and plantations, and then a fund started to support them as shamans, as seers and revelators, so they wouldn't have to work.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carolyn. Judith Welch, yes. Please unmute yourself and get your spotlight in here. There we go.
Hello,
Hello.
Judith.
Hello, Margaret. Hello, everyone. As far as doing something locally, and I'm coming to you from the state of New York, just north of Manhattan in Westchester County.
I grew
And
up in
I'm involved in two
Yonkers.
organizations.
I grew up in
You
Yonkers.
where? Oh,
Yonkers.
well, I'm living in Yonkers right now.
Okay.
Woohoo! One of the organizations that I'm involved in and co-president of is the American Association of University Women. And it's
I
an
know them well. I know them
national
very well.
organization.
Yeah.
And one of the activities we do locally that I'm very proud of and winning. And it takes like 12th grade girls, and we bring in all of the women politicians that we have locally, and if we can get somebody statewide, and they talk to the girls, and the girls are coached to develop a candidate, a platform, a logo, and at the end of the day, each team of girls presents. It's an attempt to get women more to create a better life politically.
And to think of what they can contribute in their future. I mean, you're
Yeah.
developing a real identity for them. It's wonderful.
Right.
Wonderful.
Very future focused.
Yeah,
So,
but
thank
it really
you.
strengthens them past the difficulties of being a teenage girl these days. I love hearing that.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Judith. Carol Kilby. Please unmute yourself and spot show. There you are.
Hello, Carol.
Hello, Meg. What a delight, privilege to speak with you. Your book, one of your earlier books, was absolutely instrumental in my shift. From one cosmology, from one worldview to another. So today, I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the time. This is part of a deep time network community here. And the gift of that deep time when it comes to how change, when change happens, has been very hopeful to me. So in addressing the cynicism that you raised and shared, and we probably share, where do we find hope, and how does a deep time perspective come into it, and also the story of deep time with the different powers that work: homeostasis, resistance, and cataclysm, breakdown, and emergence.
Okay.
And anyway, I'll stop and listen.
Well, I love your curiosity, and when you mention the word hope to me, it's like a huge. I'm coming off a high diving board wanting to talk to you all about hope, because hope is a terrible ambush for our energy and our efforts. And in all Asian spirituality, it is well known that hope and fear are the same dynamic. I've written about this a lot. I've talked about it. You can go to my website and find articles on beyond hope and fear, because hope is the expectation, not in the Christian vague sense, but when we hope for things to improve or things to get better, we're setting ourselves up for profound levels of disappointment. And it clouds, it's a filter that clouds and takes away our energy. If we hope for something and it doesn't happen, where are we? Well, we're caught in cynicism, in fear, and there are numbers of people now who commit suicide because their advocacy, I'm thinking of several climate scientists who've left, but there is a place beyond hope and fear, and it's called clear seeing, clarity. Clarity to understand what is happening, and clarity to discern where could I make a small but significant contribution. Now, Václav Havel, who was the first president of the Czech Republic and a beautiful playwright and poet, who was an accidental activist, who then became the first president of the new Czech Republic. He said, hope is not the expectation that things will work out well, but the certainty that something is worth doing no matter how it turns out. And it's focusing on the rightness, the correctness of the work we choose to do. And then, very difficult, but really important, letting go of outcomes. This is also true generosity. True generosity is you offer what you want to give, but you don't look for thanks. You don't look for feedback or even appreciation. That's, again, a very high ideal for generosity, but it becomes real. You just see what needs to be done and you do it. And then if it works out, wow, that's a gift these days. And if it doesn't work out, you're not destroyed in your energy by disappointment. And instead, you can just figure out, okay, I'm going to try something else. We're going to try as much as we can to solve this issue. Maybe it's clean water in our town or food for kids. We're going to try one thing, and if that doesn't work, we're going to try another. And if that doesn't work, we're going to try another, because the work itself is important. But that's not motivated by hope. That's motivated by clarity. And this definition by Havel, he also said, and this I do believe, at a deeply spiritual level, the human spirit is always looking forward. It's not caught in the past in regret or disappointment. We keep looking forward. And that's, in Havel's definition, hope is always looking beyond the present horizon. Okay, so these are very important concepts. And I just want to quickly say I have written a very one-pager on the difference between hope and warriorship. So, we're all supposed to be optimistic, right? So you look at a glass, is this glass half full or half empty? And there's only one right answer, right? We're all supposed to be positive and optimistic. But if you're into a spiritual warrior mode of wanting to contribute, you look at this glass and you say, look, there's water here. Who needs it? And how am I going to get it to them?
Wow.
That's working with present moment reality. And then you would experiment with multiple ways of getting water to those in need. So it's a very important distinction that we don't waste our energy on being hopeful. Let's just use all the energy we have on the way I have phrased it. The way I have phrased it is we need to see clearly so we can act wisely, not clouded by hope, and fear. So I'm glad you brought it up, Carol.
Well,
Before we
I'll-
before we go on, Chris Hart, can you come on? We have connections and you're at Findhorn, so I wanted to see your face, please.
Looking for Chris.
He just put something in the chat, so I know.
Yeah, I know he's here. Searching for him in the list.
Hello there.
Here we go. There we go.
Hi there.
So the reason I wanted to say hi to you, Chris, is because I'm deep, deep friends with John Talbot and Samantha Graham.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Samantha was the reason I first came here, funny enough.
Yeah. And I first came I met them at Findhorn many, many years ago, and then went, with them in Australia a lot. And so, yeah, we were just in touch a minute ago before this. So I just wanted to say hello.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Okay, but tell me what you meant, but the glass is, I'm going to put you on the spot here. The glass is completely full. It's half water and it's half air, and we need both, and it is overflowing. I like that, but give it a little more.
Well, I just heard it said once and it stuck with me. I just thought the guy was holding it up and he says it half full or half empty. And of course we were going, well, whatever, half full. He just said, it's overflowing with all the things we need for life. So it just stuck with me. And I thought it was quite a good metaphor for when things are looking dark or,
Very good segue. Very good segue.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to meet you. Now you can go back to your anonymity.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Mary Jo Grogan. Yes, please.
And thank you for what you just shared on clarity. And I'm hoping that you can provide a little clarity for me. I find that when I'm sharing my grief or my anger around injustice, oftentimes from my New Age friends, I get the response, oh, but we have to have compassion for both sides. We have to have compassion for everyone. My chiropractor the other day, when I was talking about the pain that I felt for the immigrant people, he immediately said, well, there's good and bad on both sides, and I'm not going to I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to take a side. And so to him, I said, this is a time for discernment, and it's a time to take a side.
Yes.
But I get this all the time, and I don't know if it's because I make people uncomfortable because I'm talking about my pain, and also people are uncomfortable about actions toward justice. It might go back to their own fears, but really, I am so tired of hearing about having compassion for for both sides. In the situation where there's so if you could.
Well, my experience of that is people are in denial and they're not willing to face the extraordinary pain of realizing not your own pain, how many people are suffering at this point. And they're not willing. The only bit I could be compassionate about with those who are denying what's happening is that, yeah, you've really put yourself in a self-protective shell and you have no capacity, capacity for compassion. And also you're going to be one of the suffering ones pretty soon as systems continue to break down. I mean, I was just in a supermarket yesterday and met my neighbor who I, don't have that much contact with, but she knows me and my work and all. And I just made a comment because we were being served bread by a Haitian immigrant. This store has hired a lot of Haitian immigrants who've been here for years and have been trying to get their families here. And I said, I just brought it up to her. I decided to name, because the woman serving us was Micheline from Haiti. I said, I really worry about them now because they could just be snatched. And she thought about it and she said, yeah, it's a tough time. And I said, no, it's a horrible time. Don't stay away from naming it accurately. And I mean, there's one thing to feel compassion, but that's not compassion to say, well, there's good and bad on both sides. Is that the world you really live in? You think there's no difference between good and bad, between those who harm and those who give benefit? I mean, it's a crazy form for me of denial. And you can push back. It's not that they're afraid of your pain. They're afraid of facing reality. And I'm not going to convince them to face reality, but I'm going to change the adjectives we use. Yeah. Tell me what's good about what's happening with immigrants right now. Tell me what's good. We won't go there together, but we would have a great conversation, Joe. Okay. In a lot of our conversations, the most compassion I can extend is that people are in denial, and it's really tough to face reality if you've created this great protective space around you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary Jo. Oh, Marilyn, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I've heard you referred to as Meg. That's okay, Meg Wheatley.
That's good. That's
As
good.
opposed to Margaret. I just wanted to offer something in response to Mary Jo's comment to you and your response. I've struggled with it as well. I do loving kindness meditations, and then you get to the difficult person, and it's really difficult to conjure up the compassion. But what I've been working on it for a long time. So what I can get to, and it's scary because the near enemy of compassion is pity, correct? So
Right.
at least I can get to the point of saying, geez, I feel so sorry for you because your life must be difficult in the way you make decisions that are going to cause you suffering. A lot of people think they can only hurt others and not hurt themselves, and they will learn you can't divide the world up that way. Okay, so when you are trying to hurt only others and keep yourself protected, you will find out that some of the choices you made weren't so good, and that you will suffer the consequences. And that's how we learn and grow. So my compassion for them is that I hope they learn and grow from the choice that they made. And in the words of Jesus, forgive them, for they know not what they do. That's the best I can do on compassion.
Where do you come out? And I appreciate, of course, the Buddhist references as a Buddhist, but we might forgive them for what they do not know they're doing, but is that where you stop? You're just happy to forgive them?
No, I have compassion for them that they are either deluded, they are operating motivation by greed, ignorance, or delusion. So I hope that I'm offering my compassion to them for a better life, that they will learn from the consequences of the choices they have made.
How does that apply to our leaders?
I think he will suffer. He will eventually suffer. I can't know everything.
So that's believing.
I know nothing, but he will suffer.
Yeah, but how do you feel about the suffering that could be stopped, but is not?
I think life is just too complex. And, I was going to comment earlier because I live in Mexico. So I think globally, I've just lost it with the United States. The quantum physics principle. The field is the determinant of the particle. I had to get my particle out of there. Okay, it's a field I do not wish to participate in or be influenced by. So I left in 2017. And that causes me to think more globally. So despite the big, horrible, beautiful bill and all the people it will harm, the US is still one of the most comfortable, economically, comfortable countries in the world. Even the poor aren't putting up with the refugees of Sudan, South Sudan and Gaza and everything else. When you look globally, I want to help people that are truly suffering beyond participating in a culture of greed, violence, militarism, selfishness, and let that culture grow up. Let it develop and let it become more loving. I just have to look more globally.
Well, I'm right with you on that, but I do want to challenge something in your reasoning that at least sounded to me like the suffering of poor people in America is nothing compared to the poor people that I've worked closely with in Zimbabwe. That's an irrelevant statement. You have to be in the context of where you are, because poverty in this country, when so few people have so much wealth, is still suffering, And so to keep our heart open to suffering and not compare whose is worse. I mean, I was once taught by my teacher, Meg, suffering is suffering. So wherever you are, let us just hold the suffering of people in our hearts. And by the way, the US is not going to grow up. It's going to collapse quite soon. So
yeah, if it grows up, it won't be in my lifetime. So, best of luck to all the young people that chose dictatorship over democracy. That's their business.
Okay, well, thank you, Marilyn. We're in
Thank
Mexico.
you.
Where are you in Mexico?
Puerto Vallarta.
Oh, so you're in a beautiful place.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Very comfortable.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Not seeing any other hands at the moment yet.
Okay, well, I'm going to really put what I hope is a challenging thought, but maybe it's a real thought for you. I have recently started using quite accurately, I believe, the word evil for what is happening in this country. Because my definition of evil, which I got a long time ago from Pema Chodron, is the desire to harm and to take pleasure in that. The desire to cause harm and suffering and to take pleasure in that. That's how I interpret everything now, that there's such destructive power afoot. In other places, but in this country, it's become the modus operandi. Let's just see how much destruction we can create to the planet, to all these things we've been proud of, scientific research, education, universities that attract people from around the world. The poor, we have always been, for so many years, compared to developed nations, we have been a heartless country, a heartless country. Our safety net is piss poor compared to other places. And now we're going to see more people losing food stamps, health care, a future of health. So I can only interpret that destruction as evil, and I'm quite happy with that. If you'd like to talk about it with me, let's talk.
If I can jump in there, Meg, I mean,
Okay.
I think what you're saying is, and I'm hearing and need to hear is, we have to call it what it is.
Yeah.
And we do the extent of harm that is being done a great disservice if we won't call it by such a loaded term and such
Right.
a heavy reality.
Yes, and I thank you for that. And Carolyn, you just brought in Matthew Fox's book on Trump and the Antichrist, which is an excellent book. I was in a public conversation with him and Brian in October when I was shocked by that book, but now it's just like, yeah, this is what it is. Throughout history, it's the presence of life-destroying behaviors and orientation. So, yeah. Thank you, Martha.
Martha.
Okay, Joyce.
Yes, I'm glad we're addressing the issue of evil. I've been an ardent reader of Heschel and Richard Rohr and Matthew Fox and all these wonderful enlightened people. But Richard Rohr and Heschel have emphasized that our Western culture and religions have stressed individual evil and ignore the collective evil of institutions. To the point that if one person kills another person, that's evil. But if one country destroys another country, that's not evil, that's patriotism. That's just one example.
Oh, I'm so glad you're bringing it in.
What we're dealing with is we deny the collective institutionalized evil at the same time that we criticize some ordinary person who does something we declare as bad. And our failure to address the greater evil is what allows it to perpetuate.
Right.
And this comes partly from our attitude of emphasis on individuality versus the collective. And we have to have more attention to the overall community and its engagement in evil. And I think that's what we're missing. So I'm so
I want to add to
excited you're talking about evil.
Yeah, and I'm glad it has brought you forth. There's something else going on, though. It's not just that our institutions, which for a long time have been destructive and filled with all the isms that deprive and marginalize people. Right now, we are in the presence, someone just wrote about, money. We're in the presence of leaders who are playing by the rules of power and wealth. And I more and more, I wrote to my senator, who is Lee, who is just terrible, terrible senator, has been for years, that he needed to go back. He's Mormon. I live in Utah. I know the faith well. Jesus in the desert, what did Satan tempt him with? Power and dominion. And Jesus said no. And I wrote to Senator Lee and said, you said yes. Trump said yes. These leaders have truly sold their souls. I have no other explanation. And so it's not even in the institutions. It's now this group of elites who, I have to say, in the history of civilizations, there are always at the last stage a small group of elites who take everything for themselves and could care less about people. And that's where we are. So thank you, Joyce.
Yes, Carolyn Millian, you have another question.
It's not really a question. I just want to point out, because I did bring up Matt's book on his primary text on evil is sins of the spirit, blessings of the flesh. And that does combine the wisdom of the East with the West. And it talks about evil in the terms of misdirected love. So in the conversation here, I'm a little concerned about a bit of a us-them dynamic going on here. And I just want to bring up his concept of that. I do believe this actually, that we're all approaching this out of love. We love different things. We're seeking to preserve different things, but people are trying to preserve things. And it's because they're coming also from a place of love, albeit misdirected love. So I just want to just bring that up and invite you all to spend some time with that text if you haven't already, because I think it's a really a very noble idea.
I do not think that is the current thinking of Matthew Fox, having been with him a few times recently. But see what it does for you. Does it create compassion? Does it create clarity? Does it define what we are up against? To say this is misdirected love? I'm sorry, I just can't go there with you. Richard Rohr's work on evil is much more direct. And I would refer to his book, which I think is called On Evil. Yeah.
But it sounds like we're going to have to disagree on that. He does speak. He had taught the class on evil, and well, I'll talk to him about it.
You're talking about Matthew, right, or Richard? Yeah, yeah. But look, let's just pause for a moment and honor that we are in very deep spiritual inquiry with one another, and bringing forth really the fundamental, trying to understand at a fundamental level what is going on right now. And the more accurately we can name that, however you want to name it, the more accurately you can name the dynamic, that will help you choose how to respond. But to just name it too superficially is what I'm absolutely clear will be just another way of hiding and not offering our spiritual service at this time. So I just want to thank you for creating, Carolyn, the different positions here. We all need to notice what's going on and how do I want to respond to it. And it's not theoretical. We need to be active here. Even if it's just noticing who needs my help today, who needs my compassion at this moment. That's how we create more a vibration. It's truly about vibrations at this point. We create a vibration that's healthy and whole and life affirming. It's very important that we be in this conversation. Okay, Betty.
And we do have another hand held without video, but go ahead, Suzanne. Oh, well, you didn't.
Betty.
Betty, is it possible to turn on your camera?
Yes.
Yeah. Just so we can see.
Is it on? I can't see it. I'm looking at.
You're there in the universe.
There we go. There we go.
I love it, Betty.
Certainly am.
We're in
I hope we all.
We're in space with you. I love it.
One thing that I think needs to be made explicit in our conversation here, and if you want to say the basic evil that this country still refuses to fully face, is that of racism. And I, this came to me.
We put in genocide there as well.
Oh, well, it's part and parcel.
Well, it's not actually.
It's all part and parcel of patriarchy.
That's what you meant. Okay.
But what brought it up in my mind at this point, well, was the conversation about, both sides deserve compassion or something like that. And I was just wondering how many people of color would respond with that, would have that response. I think it would be.
I think there's been enormous teachings of compassion and understanding. I'm thinking of Martin Luther King right now, but of many Black leaders. But the question is, and I want to ask, okay, just let me say,
Sure.
what do you do with that compassion? And you don't stay passive.
Exactly. But that's what I'm saying when it's, when it's like the conversation stops there.
Right.
That's what I'm talking about. I think that so much has to do with what's happening in this country with our so-called leaders. And it just seems like white supremacy is,
Absolutely.
the underlying way of causing harm and
we are, yes.
And what this bill is aimed at, this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right on it there. Yep. This is, from many spiritual perspectives, the last terrible, violent gasp of this very destructive paradigm of control, white supremacy, submission of women. But we got to get through this period. And it's questionable whether we're going to or not, but we need to be the people who see it and then act from that clarity. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I guess the phrase too, right fragility, that labeling of reactions often of people who, white people, I guess we're people of color too, but a white color. But yeah, that I think is underlying a lot of white responses.
Absolutely. And now the question for all of us, once we see clearly, what do we do with that level of clarity? Because we can't change it at the national level now. 2026 is a really long way ahead, and I'm not sure we're going to make it. But what do we do now to stand up for people, for the human spirit? Yeah.
Just before tuning into this webinar, I was on listening to a discussion from the couple that started the group Indivisible.
Yeah.
And one of the things they were talking about was, yeah, the November 2026 election is a long time off. But one of the things that they were specifically mentioning was there are elections coming up this November, like in Virginia and in New Jersey, that we have to make it overwhelmingly clear, that of what is coming in 26. But anyway, that was just one thing. But you were responding.
And now that people will see the impact on their own lives of this, the consequences of this bill, that's going to change the local political scene a lot.
Can I just mention one other thing that was relating to that about like the changes that are going to be literally killing people, like with Medicaid and stuff. They are purposely not going to really get kicked in until after the November 26th election. And so I think people need to be aware to bring that up to people, because a lot of people aren't going to see the consequences before the 2026 election.
Yeah, but when you don't get SNAP, when you don't get food
Oh,
stamps,
right. Yes.
Right now, you can't get healthcare treatments when your local hospital is closing now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, I just got a text from my congressperson. I guess they're listening in. All right.
We're getting close to our end here, but we might be able to squeeze in a couple of quick ones.
Okay, well,
Suzanne.
I'd like to hear from Marcel, who I've not yet heard from.
Okay, let's, Marcel, let's, here we go.
Well,
And
hello, Michelle.
there
How are
you go.
you? Good to see
Hello, you've heard from me in another context. But I just want to say two things. One is that I think besides the fundamental evils of racism, genocide, ecocide, there's underneath that there is a deadening of awareness of the sacred nature of life and our connection to the earth and to the
Yes.
realities beyond, in other dimensions. That the deadening of those senses that is part of what's causing this
Thank you for
problem.
that. And Matthew Fox has, because I'm just going to interrupt you. Matthew Fox has quoted someone else, and I've quoted him a lot. You would have heard this from me in another context, that the opposite of evil is not goodness, it's sacredness. Yes, that's what's been lost these hundreds and hundreds of years now. Yes.
Yeah. Great, thank you, Marcel.
I have one more thing.
Sorry.
Something that's really troubling me is that as I felt during the first Trump presidency, I feel it much more strongly now. I feel this murderous impulses and images, which it's like, wow. And I know that this energy is actually pushing me to do things I might have held back on doing before. And in the sense that the energy is good, but it's shocking that I find these strong images inside of me.
I would say stay with that, though, given who you are, those might be gifts of insight. Really. So honor them. Yeah.
All right. Suzanne, is your comment quick? We're about at our end here.
No, I see the time's short. There's a major idea we haven't talked about at all, which is that we were headed for a collapse with overshoot. And it could be in the cosmic scheme of things that where the universe is creating our evolution, that Trump could have been sent to crash everything, because then we'll rethink. And if, for instance, if Kamala had won, we would not rethink. We'd still be in a capitalist situation where we were not paying attention to this apocalypse that is on its way. So I just want to say it's an important idea to be working with.
Well, I'm not sure it's an important. It's generally a hypothesis for which we have no validation.
Oh, no. I'm deeply.
You can't say, Suzanne, that you know for a fact that Trump was sent by.
No.
Challenging.
No. I'm just saying the overshoot is not speculation.
Oh, not at all. And I've written 2 books on collapse. So
I'm just saying, maybe in the grand cosmic scheme, that's what might have happened. So
I don't believe that for a minute, but
we need to pay attention. So how are we going to do it? But
so what you're going to do, this is a good place for me to end, Bob. We need to stop looking for meta reasons from which we have no proof. Those are just thoughts and hypotheses. We need to look at, as spiritual people, how we can help relieve the suffering of this time. Really, I mean, our meta views of, well, maybe this will take down capitalism. It will definitely do that. It will take down the planet as well in her current form. So let's just get focused. How can I help today in this very moment? And that's the real path of the spiritual warrior. How can I?
That doesn't preclude what you're saying.
I know you do, but you added something that,
yeah,
let's just stay present for the moment, because that's the antidote to despair, to depression, to hopelessness. When you can help another human being or a plant or an animal, that moment is always joyful. So that's a good way to end. I do want to read a poem. Do we have time for a short poem?
We do.
Okay. This is by Hafiz, who wrote in the 11th century. And he said, "You could become a great horseman and help to free yourself and this world, but only if you and prayer become sweet lovers. It is a naive person who does not think we are engaged in a great, fierce battle. For I see and hear brave foot soldiers all around me going mad and falling to the ground in excruciating pain. You could become a victorious horseman and carry your heart through this world like a life-giving sun. So only if you and the Great Spirit become sweet lovers. That poem is, if you're looking for it, Bob, is called Like a Life-Giving Sun by Hafiz.
Thank you. You're reading my mind.
Yes. Great poem.
So, Meg, thank you so much for the gift of your time, your insights, the wisdom revealed in your conversation and dialogue, their active listening and active response, I know is a gift to each and every one of us. And it's so appreciated in these times. It's a most valuable lesson. So thank you once again. And I will refer everyone again to, if you want to spend more time with Meg's thoughts and writings, margaretwheatley.com is beautifully organized, a ton of free resources and wisdom. So with that, I will.
And let me just say that I have truly enjoyed you bringing your questions, but your hearts to this conversation. It's a very great experience to be with you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Meg. And as Penny noted at the beginning, Global Kinship will be back on the first Thursday of October. Watch your inboxes for those announcements. And we look forward to seeing you then, as well as at the other first Thursday offerings in between. So with that, I'm going to stop our recording.